Good morning, everybody. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talks Jack and Keith's Weekend Playbook. A lot of exciting stuff to talk about, as you know, and I'll welcome in my co-host right away, Michael Spinks, autobiographer.
Okay.
Check the book out. Make sure you get Michael Jinx Spinks. You can get it on Amazon and a few other places, and in bookstores all around you, hopefully soon. And welcome in this morning, Jack. How are you?
Hey, good morning. A lot to talk about, Keith. A lot to talk about, and I know you're raring to go to talk about the Tennessee-Michigan game.
Yeah, well, I was going to start with the women's bracket, but because of popular opinion, we'll start somewhere else. The game of the day yesterday, and maybe the game of the tournament, was UConn and Duke, and it was like two different games. I thought this game was over. Duke dominated the first half. They dominated off turnovers. They dominated inside. They dominated off the offensive boards. And UConn seemed to have no answer. But they came back in the second half, still down, I think, with 6.5 minutes left. They're still down double digits. And they were just resilient and fought back. Again, a lot of people using the choke word that I hate with Duke. But look at good play also causes these type of meltdowns by teams. So I think just a great basketball team, and let's not tarnish it by just saying Duke choked. Great game.
No, I don't think a lot of people are saying Duke choked. I think they're more focusing on the final play, and we're going to go over that to analyze that. With Hayden Buzo like throwing the ball away and so on, but. Yeah. In the first half, Duke just came out of the gate strongly, and UConn was completely out of sorts. They weren't even able to run a set play effectively. They weren't even able to get a decent look at the basket. And you wonder what was happening with UConn, really underneath the basket. And even when they interviewed Danny Hurley, like during the game, he was exasperated. He says, well, let someone else beat us. That type of thing. He had to have a lot of doubt in his mind. And Duke was nursing this double-digit lead that was going like 15 to 17 points for so much of the first half there. You're waiting for Duke, the way it's looking, to move this lead up to 25, 30 points and put the game completely out of reach. And I don't want to say UConn twiddled away at the lead little by little, but suddenly UConn came alive, and that clock seemed to be so slow. I don't mean there was anything improper done, but little by little you're realizing, wait a second, UConn's down 12 points. They're down 10 points. They've taken Duke's best shot. Can they get in the game? And the desire UConn was showing, and no one talks about this, they would be hustling and saving balls that were going out of bounds on the offensive rebounds. If they'd miss a shot, ball would be going out of bounds. The desire that they were having, they picked the tempo up. And I know we joke on this show with the word momentum, but that was true big-time momentum. And I will criticize Duke in this sense. They didn't respond emotionally. It says because they were so dominating the game and they were in such a comfort zone, they couldn't turn the switch on to match UConn's intensity until late in the game. And then late in the game, we saw the way things played out. Very late in the game.
Yeah, I'm not. Again, Brian is what I know. Brian doesn't like Duke, which also moves you towards saying
some guys hate for no reason.
Well, if you hate a team,
I got that from the Rocky movie.
I get it. There's a lot of guys that hate Duke, right? I get it. You don't like Duke. You don't like Duke.
Brian hates Duke. He's entitled. A lot of people hate Duke.
Yes, you're definitely entitled to hate them, but I'm not going to say they choked this game away just because I'm not the biggest Duke fan, but I'm impressed by good basketball. UConn showed, and Rick's comment was actually very spot on in my mind too. Oops, where is it? Heart of the champion. They played, and there's guys on that team, Caravan, who didn't play well yesterday at all, but they've got two seniors, which you don't see a lot of, two 4-year seniors on this team, and that heart of the champion means something. They don't give up, and this team didn't quit. A lot of teams would have quit 19 down yesterday. They didn't.
No. But today, I think more people, the morning after, are focusing on Duke than UConn. Everyone admires UConn's great comeback, but everyone's focusing on the last play, the last possession that Duke had. I want to talk about that in a moment. But if I'm going to criticize Duke and Coach Shire for anything, and I think Coach Shire is a great coach, I really do. I think he's outstanding, regardless of what happened yesterday and last year. They were a little too reliant, I think, on Cam Boozer. Now, I know Cam Boozer is a great player, but that's what was happening at the end of the game. Give the ball to Cam, move out of the way. Yeah. And they needed more than that. But you have to consider Duke's mindset. They were winning all game until the last second. I'm not talking about the first minute where UConn hit a basket. They were winning all game, and then all of a sudden, the game is just about over. And the realization sets in, we're actually going to lose at the end.
I will say, again, forget about the 19-point deficit Duke erase. Well, you can't forget it, but forget it for a second. That's just basketball. Games of momentum, as you said, the game goes back and forth. You see lots of games like this. And I'm not going to say Duke choked. If they choked somewhere, you mentioned emotionally, I'll say mentally, if they choked somewhere, it was in that last sequence when they didn't need to be throwing the ball all over the court. They could have just stood there and they would have got fouled.
I want to talk that last sequence with Caden Boozer. Ball comes into Caden Boozer. He's the one that threw it away. And I hear people saying, well, he should have just held on to the ball. First of all, wait. Weren't there about 7 seconds left?
10
there
seconds.
Were about 7 when Caden Boozer had the ball.
Oh, you got the ball, yeah, I would say.
And Duke is up 2 points with about 7 seconds left.
Yep.
If he held on to the ball, different things could have happened. 1, they could have stolen it off him if he's just holding the ball. 2, they could have tied him up. Okay? And then there could have been a change of possession.
Where was zero?
3, the most likely scenario, they would have had to then foul him. So they would have fouled him, and there would have been, let's say, 5 seconds left. And if he misses his foul shots, Duke has a chance to take the ball down the court. I mean, UConn has a chance to take down
the
ball down the court, hit a 3-pointer to either tie it or win it, depending on what Duke had done at the foul line. But if I'm going to have a criticism of Duke on that play, they had a timeout left. Why didn't someone call timeout when Boozer had the ball? Did John Shire ask for timeout at that moment? Did he ask for timeout? Because this is the case. If he asked for timeout, they would have had to take the ball out of bounds, and he probably felt more comfortable that UConn's less likely to steal the ball once they have it on the court as opposed to throwing it in from out of bounds. So he didn't want to use his last timeout that way. I mean, we could have revisionist thinking. Caden Boozer didn't make a good pass, or better yet, Duke made a brilliant, defensive play to tip the ball, steal it away, get possession. And also, we hear about Mullins. I don't want to hear that much about Mullins. The man made one good shot. He missed. He went 1 for 5. He's not a hero to me.
He won the game. How could he not be the hero?
But listen, had the guy made any of his 4 other 3-pointers that he missed, maybe they wouldn't have been in that position. But no, look, kudos to Mullins. He made a great shot. Don't tell me he's the hero of the game. You want to know something, Keith? Wait 1 second, Keith Engle. Let me just say this.
Things can be true.
The man, we don't even remember the name of the Duke player who passed it to Mullins at the end with time running out, who had the presence of mind not to throw up a desperation shot and hit Mullins with the open pass for the winning basket. He gets no credit, just like you don't want to give me credit on this show when you make a good point.
I'm never giving you credit, Jack. That's got nothing.
I mean, I'm getting a little over dramatic, a little too emotional now.
Listen, There is something to what you're saying. I mean, we saw it with St. John's and Darling, who had made a shot, right? And they went to him to win a big game, and then he lost a big game for
Well,
him.
it was terrible that game for St. John's. It was only 2 points of the game. He made one great play, and we're going to remember him as an NCAA hero.
He is the hero. I agree. Brian here, I got to agree with. Mullins is the hero. And Mullins, by the way,
a memorable shot.
He is also a very reluctant hero because, as I mentioned to you before the show, and anybody who watched the post game and saw him interviewed, he said he gave the ball up because he wanted to give it to somebody he thought could make the shot because he didn't think he would. He said, I wanted to give it to somebody who would actually.
He was being modest. He was being modest in part, I'm sure.
He makes, and by the way, you want to give the guy credit who gave up the ball? He didn't give it to the guy who had a better shot than he did. He shot that from the logo, not from the 3-point line. He shot that from 3.
No, he had an open look. Mullins had an open look directly facing the basket. It was a little far out, but it wasn't a half-court shot. Look, great shot by Mullins. Great shot.
About a 30.
A great clutch shot by Mullins at the end.
Great shot.
He's always going to be remembered for that. When we talk about the great moments in NCAA history, so far this year in the tournament, the top two taking place with the Big East teams, Mullins and Darling, who couldn't make a shot otherwise during the game. You know, Mullins, like I said, that was his only 3-point he hit. He missed the first 4, and Darling didn't even score all game long.
I will tell you something, too, and Cam Boozer's going to take it because Cam Boozer, we're going to talk about 2 guys in this game, and you talked about Mullins maybe unfairly because he's not – other guys contributed a lot to this win to get to that point. Boozer's going to be looked at badly. Boozer played a great tournament. He played a great tournament, and he's going to – this one play is really going to –
You're talking about Caden Boozer, not Cam.
Sorry, Caden Boozer. He played well.
You know, sports is so unforgiving, Keith. You can have even, forget the greatest game, the greatest career, and you miss one ball, and it marks you for good, like the Bill Buckner thing. I sometimes think even we're Yankee fans, when David Wells pitched a no-hit, a perfect game, could you imagine the last out of the game, Paul O'Neill drops the ball? Had that happened, the Yankees never retire O'Neill's number. That's what we think about O'Neill. Maybe he's not even in the broadcast booth for the Yankees. I mean, it's unbelievable the way one play, you know, for good and bad. Caden Boozer, he's not as good as his brother Cam, if we're going to do comparisons. But Caden Boozer is a wonderful player, high-impact player for Duke. And he played a good game, but it's unfortunate to play at the end. But then again, someone could have called timeout when he had the ball. He had 2 guys on him.
Again, I will say a couple things about that last sequence for Duke. Number one, you could have called timeout when you see your team is a lot discombobulated there and not knowing what to do. So if you want to use the word choke, they choked there mentally on what they need to do, because I can tell you again, I know you say a lot of things can happen, but you know what every team would do there? They'd all stand there with the ball and let somebody foul them. They're not going to worry about getting a steal. They're going to cover up the ball and just stand there.
And let me tell you something, too. I'm going to actually be critical of UConn at the end of the game. Okay, they made the basket. They won. So everything is wonderful. Duke's up 2 points with 10 seconds to go. UConn went to the line. They missed. They were down 3 points, UConn. When they went to the line, they got fouled smartly by Duke with 10 seconds. The UConn goes to the line. They missed the first foul shot. Wow, that changes things. And they have a decision. You miss the shot on purpose. You can get the ball back and take a 3-pointer to tie wisely. And kudos to Dan Hurley. Wisely, they elected not to use that strategy with 10 seconds. Kudos to Dan Hurley. They made the second foul shot. Now they're down 2 points with 10 seconds. I'm saying foul immediately. None of this nonsense like trapping, going for the steal.
Yeah.
You foul them, and now you have 9 seconds left. Duke goes to the line, and you have to hope Duke misses one shot out of the 2.
They thought they were shot was a trap.
But if Duke misses a shot, you got now 8, 9 seconds to tie the game up, take the ball down the court or whatever. You're still alive. But they elected to go for the steal, and the time was going off the clock. What happens if they didn't get that? What happens, Keith, had UConn not stolen the ball away? Duke would have eaten up practically all of the 10 seconds, and UConn wouldn't have had any timeouts. It would have been over for UConn.
They almost did. And in fairness to Danny Hurley, he said they had time for one trap. There was 10 seconds left. They had time to try one trap, and that was it. I had it, yeah. Fairness, after that first trap, when the guy gave the ball up to the I don't remember who it was or who he passed it to, but he passed it across court, and he nearly threw that one away. That's when things started to go haywire for Duke a little bit. I think they panicked a little bit when they almost threw that first pass away.
They did look to be some panic there. They did.
But once he got the ball, he could have dribbled out the clock. He ran right to midcourt where there were players. I would have stopped and just let them follow me. But they could have also, if they made one more pass, they would have run the clock out.
But you think, look, Caden Boozer tried to throw the ball in the front court, which is the smart thing to do because the clock is ticking. If somehow Duke gets it, they got to bring the ball up the court and, have a desperation shot, basically. They don't have time to get set. But he wasn't thinking in terms of Duke stealing the ball. And listen, it happens. Give Duke credit on that trap. They had two guys on, Caden Boozer. And credit, that's why Dan Hurley knows more basketball than I could ever dream of knowing, figuring they had time for one trap. And I was aware of that, but I didn't think it would be prudent to trap at that moment. Because let's be honest, Keith, the vast majority of times when a team traps, they don't steal the ball away. We've seen it happen over and over. Time goes off the clock. And that would have taken away UConn's final chance. What happens
more often than not is the ball goes, they throw the ball down the court and get an easy layup is what happens.
Whatever, yeah.
So, again, a chancy thing. I think I agree with you on that last sequence when he missed the first free throw. I'm like, oh, God, it does change everything. And that play rarely works when you try to hit it off the rim and get the ball back. That rarely works. So kudos to Danny Hurley for not doing that.
UConn, too, their shooting was terrible in the first, the three-point shooting. They were 1 for 18 to start off.
Yeah.
That is atrocious. But I think Duke was outplaying them otherwise. You could argue with UConn's atrocious three-point shooting, Duke should have maybe been up 27, 28 points at some juncture.
Brian wants to know if he thinks Coach K. Yeah, I think Coach K probably went all time out there, quite frankly.
No, I'm going to tell you, Coach K.
Not a shot at John Shire. Great coach. He's a great coach.
John Shire is a wonderful coach. Could he have done things differently? Yeah, he probably wished he'd called the timeout. But Coach K also, as great a coach as he was, and Coach K was a great coach, he had one play in the NCAA finals against Butler, I think, where he put Butler in a position to take the final shot. I forgot, Keith, you maybe remembered a little more clearly. There were maybe a couple of seconds left. Butler had no timeouts. Butler's only hope was to heave the ball all the way down the court or something. Coach K had his guy make the foul shot so Butler could throw it in, and they took a half-court shot for the winner, and it nearly went in. Yeah. It would have been a disaster. I think Coach K, it wasn't smart of him, that play, even though he still tried to defend it when the game was over.
He had some tough losses. We think about the later play, right? You mentioned before the show, we think about that against Kentucky. But he also had some tough losses, I think, if I remember, too, to Connecticut in this game, Coach K, in the tournament. I remember, and it's going back about 30 years probably, but he had a tough loss, I think, either in the Elite Eight or Sweet 16 to Connecticut with a very similar last-second shot.
And it took Coach K quite a while to break through.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be the case with Coach Shire. Again, Coach Shire is a heck of a coach, of a coach. And you feel for Cam Boozer going to the NBA. I don't think you ever get over losses like this, especially if it's your last one in college. I mean, it just sticks to you, and I think it gnaws at you.
I'm surprised some kids, especially with some money involved, don't come back and try to erase that bad memory. But
there's no guarantee you will, and then you're a year away from the NBA where you want to play in. Some of these losses, it just, when I say it sticks to you, you take a case, for example, I'm going really back in time, crazy, Wilkes Still Chamberlain. No one thinks of his college career at Kansas, where in the NCAA championship game, they lost in triple overtime. Will always felt strange going back to Kansas for anything. He felt like he let the team down. Had Kansas won that game, Wilt Chamberlain would have been a legend at Kansas. They would have been considered a little bit of a legendary team because they had Wilt.
You talked about Coach K. John Shire has gotten off to, and he was left a better program, quite frankly. But he's off to a better start than Coach K was. He almost got fired.
He was at the better program.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't get to the NCAA.
They went to the Final Four this last year.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the beginning of his career. So he didn't take over as good a team as Shire did, as you just pointed out. But he nearly got fired before he ever became the legend that he became. He didn't make the NCAA tournament till like his fourth season. I don't think he won a game until his sixth season. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Had he got let go, how it would have played out? He would have gone elsewhere. I would think he'd have success, Coach K, not as much as he had at Duke. I mean, because when you talk about the greatest college coaches of all time and you have a small bracket of 4 or 5 guys, his name goes in the bracket.
He's on Mount Rushmore for sure.
Yeah, I mean, with John Wooden, Coach K, maybe 1 or 2 more. I'm not sure about Bobby Knight, but Bobby Knight's a legendary name. But
yeah. My Mount Rushmore would be Coach K, Wooden, Dean Smith.
Dean Smith. Well,
and
Dean Smith have all this. Dean Smith actually didn't quite have as much success over careers people think he had, if you look at it carefully. But Dean Smith maybe coached the most legendary players in college, with the possible exception of John Wooden.
He had great success, but not the ultimate success in college it took him 20 years to win a national championship.
Yeah.
So anyway, just a great game yesterday. So let's move on to the other game that Brian was probably more than happy with, because Michigan just dismantled Tennessee. Now, look, Tennessee's was probably the worst team left in this tournament. They played good basketball up until now. I think they relied on Gillespie a lot, way too much yesterday. But Michigan, I got to give Michigan some props. I've been saying that Arizona is the best balanced team in this tournament, and maybe I didn't take a hard enough look at Michigan and the depth of Michigan. They had all their starters. I think what's his name? That's the guy, their star's name. Lenda. What the hell is his name? Help me.
I don't think it's Linda.
Not Linda. No, it's what the hell is his name? Ryan's going to put it up before I find it.
Okay, but
hold on. How's his name? Lindborg.
Okay.
Lindeborg. So he scores 27 yesterday, but the rest of the starters all have double digits, plus the bench. The bench has 27 points. That's the best bench I've seen in this tournament so far. This team is deep, and there's 4 teams going into this Final Four that are going to have a chance to win this tournament. Michigan might be the best team, but unfortunately, they're going to get the other best team in Arizona in the semifinals. So it's going to be a very interesting Final Four coming up.
Have you ever listened to a sports commentator and say they have no clue what they're talking about?
Every now and again, yeah.
Yeah, that was me. That was me on yesterday's show. No clue on what I was talking about. I don't know why I said it. I'm babbling on that Michigan doesn't strike me as a dominant team, despite the dominance they've been showing in the tournament. What an irresponsible remark by yours truly. And then I had the audacity, the nerve to just dismiss Michigan And say I think Tennessee is going to upset them. I mean, I had no clue what I was talking about, Keith. No clue whatsoever. I was just babbling on.
It speaks a lot of you to admit that.
So I'll take that hit. Say what you want about me, laugh at that remark. But let me say this about the matchups next week. This is working out very nicely for the UConn-Illinois winner, because I think the best two teams, and put them in whatever order you want, I'm not Michigan and Arizona. They're the two best teams left. And then UConn and Illinois, the winner of that game is only going to have to beat one of them. And we all know the Illinois-UConn winner is capable of beating one of them on a given day. So this kind of reminds me, going all the way back, to 1985, when Georgetown played St. John's and Villanova played Memphis. Kind of St. John's was moved out of the way by Georgetown. So all Villanova had to do was win one game, come up with a monster showing where they shot 80%. I think this is the scenario that could, or UConn and not UConn, Louisville and Houston, the year NC State won it all.
Yeah.
I mean, they were probably the two best teams, but NC State was able to cash in. They only had to beat one monster team.
And they did in the semis, right?
Yeah.
This is an interesting Final Four, and because you'll look at it and you think, well, there's there's two number ones, a 2, and a what? Illinois is a 3, I think, right? So it looks kind of chalkish, but when you think about, you take UConn out, who just won back-to-back championships just a few years ago. Illinois has never won a national championship that I believe. Arizona and Michigan hasn't won one in 30 plus years, if I remember right. They didn't even win with the Fab Four at all. And Arizona hasn't won in 20 some years. So this is not necessarily your classic chalk Final Four, even though there's a lot of low seeds here. I think it's a lot of fun. I'd like to see a team. I don't have a dog in this hunt anymore. I keep picking teams to win that lose. So I guess you don't want me to pick your team right now. But I'm rooting for anybody but UConn because I like to see some fresh blood win, right? Nobody's won. None of these teams have won either forever or in decades. So
I don't go along with you. I think most of the public is going to want UConn to win because of the familiarity. Back-to-back national champions a couple of years ago. Dan Hurley's personality. How can you not like Dan Hurley's personality? Let me tell you something.
Like I'm not rooting against them necessarily. I love Dan Hurley. I think he's a great coach. We were
talking about commentators being interviewed, at least I was, and you were talking about between innings. And I'm saying coaches shouldn't have to talk to the commentators at halftime and timeouts because it's a pain in the butt. Why I like Dan Hurley? I think he actually enjoys doing it. He actually enjoys talking about it. And if they said to him, Dan, can you give us an extra minute? He'd say 30 seconds.
There's only a couple. I hate those interviews myself. There's a couple of guys that I've enjoyed. Him and Popovich with the Spurs.
Pop has fun. Pop makes it up. He makes the best. He made the best of it. Pop enjoyed it. He saw the humor in it.
Yeah,
and he was great. And sometimes you wonder, what are these coaches going to accomplish in that extra minute they're back in the locker room? Teams know what they want to do, and they have to make adjustments on the fly, and they're well prepared. And that makes me think too, Keith. You look at the benches. How many coaches or seconds do they have? They seem to have about 20 guys in suits and all. You kind of wonder what everyone's role is.
Well, we talked about it not too long ago. Maybe we didn't, but you go back a bunch of years, and there was nobody but the head coach, right? Red Holtzman didn't have an assistant coach with the Knicks, not one, right? And John Wooden had like one assistant, then two. Now they're like you said, they're sitting in the back row. We can't even get them all on the court.
I would be surprised if the nutritionalist there, the stretching coach, to stretch them out or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll give you that one too, Brian. Patino's pretty good in those little interviews.
Patino's a little uptight. You could tell. It's annoying to him. He's forcing himself to be funny. I'm not saying Patino isn't a nice guy, I mean, I'm sure if we were, this is how I judge things sometimes, Keith, for fun. If we had to drive cross country and someone had to keep us company, Patino would be good company. He'd be a good guy. Well, I think I can't say that about everybody. Certainly the other coaches could be a little uptight.
Danny Hurley might drive me nuts. I don't know. He might never shut up.
Danny Hurley would drive you crazy, Yeah, but in a good way. By
the way, it's fun to see his dad there in the stands rooting him on. His dad is a legend in New York, the New York area, New Jersey area, I guess.
Bobby Hurley just got let go.
He got fired by Arizona State.
Arizona State. Is he going to land anywhere? Maybe it's an assistant.
I don't know what he'll do. There was talk that he might come here to Siena, quite frankly, but it looks like that's going to be Mike Hopkins, former Washington coach and coached under Jim Boeheim at Syracuse. His name has been mentioned in the North Carolina State opening, so we'll see.
One question. I was watching a little bit of the semifinal Division II men's game, okay, on ESPN, quickly, a little bit. Can one of these coaches, like a Bobby Hurley, go to a Division II school? Do they ever recruit universities, Division II, head coaches who've had tremendous success there?
Yeah. You mean to bring up to the Division?
Yeah, Division I.
Absolutely. A lot. Bill Self coached, I think, on that level at one point. Greg,
hire them directly as a head coach, not as an assistant.
Directly, well, not at the major program, right? They would probably get hired at one of the mid majors and then have to work their way up from there. I can't remember a case of a major conference opening where they hired somebody from, lower than the 1A. Going
just very quickly a level down, Morgan Wooten, he coached his whole career at high school, right?
Yeah.
Could have been an NBA coach. I mean, Red Auerbach revered him. He had a chance to be the head coach at NC State before Belvano took the job there. That's a rarity, someone who won't leave their nest. They're so comfortable there.
Well, Bob Hurley, senior, who we were just talking about, is a guy who could have gone and coached in college if he wanted to. And he spent his entire career in high school. And I think all of it at St. Anthony's. There's a great documentary. I don't know where you could probably find it on YouTube or someplace about St. Anthony's and Bob Hurley. And it's old because St. Anthony's is closed now. But it's a tremendous documentary. This is a tiny little Catholic school in the middle of New York City. And he's getting the best kids from the metro area to go to school there. He produced a lot of major college players and a lot of NBA players out of that tiny little Catholic school in New York. So you're right. There's a lot of guys who never get a chance. Actually, the more I think about it, like McCallum, the coach for Iowa, he was coaching at the lower level. I think just 2 years ago, he came up and was hired by, I want to say maybe Evansville, and he coached 1 year there and then went to Iowa. So that's as close as I can think of a guy getting to a major program from the lower divisions. So good question, though. Before we leave college basketball, so we'll talk more Friday about the Final Four. That'll happen on Saturday, and the final will be Monday. So we'll make our total predictions on Friday.
No. Monday's game's Monday night, the championship game. So
Monday. Thank you.
We'll just make the Final Four predictions and then the championship game Monday morning.
I choked there. My brain choked there. So one thing I want to get to. So St. John's goes out in the round of 16. Rick Pitino's now signed an extension. And a lot of articles that the mission for St. John's now is Final Four or bust. Nothing else is good enough. Do you think it's realistic in today's world that he's not going to have a successful year next year unless he gets to the Final Four? I realize he's raised the expectations, so that's what it is, but that's a lot.
Look, even if Pitino hypothetically washes out, let's say the worst case scenario happens and he doesn't make the NCAA tournament in the next few years. His contract, I believe, runs through 2029 now.
With the extension, yeah.
So that gives him what, like 4 more years or something.
He'll be
that he
years old, I think, or something, right?
Yeah, or whatever it is. You could always say, St. John's did not get to a Sweet 16 for 27 years. After 27 years, he got into a Sweet 16. And let's be honest about it. Before Petrino came to coach St. John's, they were relevant.
For decades.
They were relevant. No one was talking about St. John's. They weren't making any tournaments. Come on, what were they? NIT bound?
Well, they made a handful of tournaments like under Brian Mahoney.
No, they did, but there was no threat. There was no buzz. There was no excitement around the program. And with Rick Pitino, the chances of recruiting top-notch players out of high school are much greater than the coaches they had before, much greater.
And getting kids in the transfer portal as well. So,
absolutely, absolutely.
St. John's is going to be in a danger zone when it's time for Pitino to go because, again, remember, they fell into Pitino because of the troubles he had previously. If Rick Pitino never runs into the trouble he runs into, Rick Pitino never coaches St. John's ever. So I don't.
Pitino's always had an urge to move around. It was easy for him to say, "Oh, I never should have left Providence. That was my dream job." Pitino got on the map by taking a lowly Providence, Rhode Island team to the Final Four.
Yeah.
That put him on the map. That basically, I don't want to use the word jump start, but that started his career off. And he wasn't a bad coach with the Knicks, Pitino there. I mean,
no, he wasn't.
It didn't work out with the Celtics. It flopped because he lost the ping pong ball where they were expected to get Tim Duncan. Could you imagine had the ping pong ball fallen the right way and the Celtics or Pitino had gotten Tim Duncan? Oh. Imagine Pitino would have been probably an NBA lifer sooner than a college guy, going forward from that instance.
It's entirely possible. They're going to have trouble, though, they're not going to get a Rick Pitino level coach to replace him when he finally does retire.
And they know it. That's why they sign these guys to these extensions. They look to see what's out there, and there's no one else out there. But St. John's can offer one thing that the other schools don't. That where they can get kids, they offer Madison Square Garden to play ball for league players, and that's just what a coincidence. Here, if you look what I have on, Keith, Madison Square Garden. That's the one place where all kids want to play above all others. Madison Square Garden.
Danny's right here. We talk about Chris Mullen. There's a lot of coaches that came through here that just couldn't make it. Most of the coaches that have come through here, they went to Chris Mullen because he had great ties to the
favorite son.
Never coached before, so that turned out to be a semi-disaster.
He was an executive with the Pacers and
but he never, again,
he never coached. But the idea of getting Chris Mullins, he was a legendary St. John's player. NBA Hall of Famer, member of the Dream Team. And this was before the transfer portal. Yep. So they felt he would be great for recruiting. He would give them a chance to get some really top of the line players. Let's be honest about it. If Chris Mullins is in a kid's home talking with him and his dad, he has a better shot at getting them than a Keith Engle or Jack Hirsch.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, for sure. So anyway, we'll move on from college. I don't want to. We're going to get back into it on Friday, and we'll talk about the NBA just real quick. I want to get to Major League Baseball and a couple of things there. Is Brunson trying to do too much for the Knicks? The Knicks lose again to a contender last night in the Thunder. Brunson often has the ball in his hands way too much in my mind, and that was supposed to change this year, by the way, with Mike Brown. He wasn't going to have the ball in his hands. He wasn't even going to be the point guard necessarily, which we don't necessarily even put those labels on guys anymore. But he still seems to have the ball like 70% of the time for the Knicks. He's the best player on the floor, so you get why. But
like that with every team.
They're going to go.
player that's the focal point, and the ball's going to be on his hands the vast majority of the time. I mean, it's wonderful to spread the wealth and have all this ball movement, but if Brunson's not going to take the initiative, who is? Is it going to be Mikal Bridges, Karl Anthony Towns, Anube? I mean,
guys are all role players. All of those guys are role players.
No, they're more than role players. No, they're more than role players. No, don't make them out to be role players.
I don't mean that.
Starters who can have an impact.
I don't mean that to be demeaning. I mean, they have to
play.
You're
being demeaning, Keith. You're calling them.
Why?
Role players. Come on.
I'm not saying
they just do one particular role, like you can say, all Karl Anthony Towns should do is rebound. That's his only thing. That's what a role player is.
That's not at all.
Demeaning to these guys. It's like.
Well, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be demeaning when I say you have a certain role to play on a team and you do it well. That shouldn't be demeaning at all. His role is to be the star of the team. That's not somebody else's role. That's what I'm saying.
Well, let me ask you this. You look at the elite players in the NBA, and a few come to mind immediately, like SGA, Luka, and I can name a few more, obviously, and I'm not saying they're necessarily 1-2, I can name a number of elite guys. Somehow we don't think of Jalen Brunson of being on that level, and maybe unfairly. I mean, do we think of Jalen Brunson being as good as Jason Tatum when Tatum is healthy and raring to go? We don't. We don't think of him as being as good as Luka. We don't think of him as being as good as Giannis.
I don't think he's as good as Luka, but I think he's as good as Tatum when he's playing well.
You think when Tatum is at the top of his game, you don't think the perception is that Tatum is better? I think that's the perception. No.
You're right 100%. The perception is Brunson is not one of the top players.
I'm talking about perception there. And you look across the league, and there were like a fair number of guys that the perception is that they're better players than Brunson, or greater than Brunson. Or Brunson's name doesn't come up in the conversation when we talk about the very best players in the NBA, and then maybe we should.
I think we absolutely should. I mean, he should have been in the MVP conversation last year in my mind, but he wasn't. So the Knicks need to beat. I mean, they've got some contenders left in their last. They got 7 games left. It looks like they got Houston next. They play Atlanta, which I think is huge. They play Boston, which is huge, and maybe even Toronto. I think they need to win some of these games to get some momentum and confidence going into the playoffs.
Well, it's all about seeding at a certain point.
Yeah.
And, the big four outside of the Knicks are the Pistons, Celtics, and Cavaliers. And if you're the Knicks, you want to get the right matchups. Who do they match up best against? I think all of them are tough matchups. I know the Knicks have basically owned Cleveland in the past. But Cleveland's got James Harden now. Harden's been the ultimate flop in the playoffs. I understand that. You don't have to remind me Harden's been terrible. He's no threat in the playoffs. But this is different. Players like Harden eventually are due for a breakthrough. And he has Donovan Mitchell, who he's coexisting very nicely with. And they have guys like Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, etc. Cleveland is a threat this year. I know they won 64 games last year and they flamed out in the playoffs. But this could be a different Cavalier team. And the Celtics just won an NBA title a couple of years ago. And if Tatum is 100% ready in the playoffs, him and Brown will cause some damage. And the Pistons have owned the Knicks. If Kevin Cunningham is there playing in top form, the Pistons are going to be trouble for the Knicks.
Well, I've said that all season, and you keep poo-pooing me, telling me they dominated them last year in the regular season and they beat them in the playoffs. So it does matter how they play against these teams because they didn't just lose to them this year. As you said, they were dominated by the Pistons in the regular season. So it's going to be interesting. The matchups will be interesting. And to Danny's point, I think, and I've said for a couple of weeks, if Tatum had 32 last night in a win, and I think with Tatum, if Tatum's 100%, they're the team to beat in the East. I really believe that.
And we were riding them off at the beginning of the year.
Yep. Yeah. They played horribly
I mean,
early.
the West is intriguing in the sense that I know the thought process is with OKC, and that they would be the favorites. But, San Antonio has been, they've owned OKC for the most part during the regular season. And you got to give the Timberwolves and Lakers, a chance to come out of the West. I'm not dismissive of the Lakers anymore. The Lakers are playing much better. They're even playing better. They're playing better defense.
Don't be dismissive of the Nuggets either. Now they've won 5 in a row and played.
They're long in the tooth. I know Jokic and Murray and all. We could hear that great 1-2 punch, but
you got one more run in them. One more run in them. We'll see. They just won a championship just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, but look what they did all the other seasons. They didn't go to finals because they won one championship. They did that one great year where they put it together,
they nearly got the champions out last year. If you remember that,
they nearly did. Yeah, the Nuggets were tough last year before getting eliminated. Yeah, 7 games.
If they find a way to avoid the Thunder, and the Thunder were to get upset somewhere, I think the Nuggets will be a chance.
That I think is the key. If you're a team like the Lakers, and I just want to take a quick look here, Keith, at the NBA standings there, because this is so important at the end. It's coming up in the West. And the Lakers are right now the number 3 seed by 1 game. OKC's the number 1 seed. San Antonio's 2.5 games behind. So we would get a scenario in the semifinals. If the season ended today, San Antonio would play the Lakers. Lakers have a shot at beating San Antonio. They're a little more seasoned. San Antonio might be 1 year away. They might be 1 year away. Okay, maybe. So could Denver beat OKC? Well, no, but Minnesota's 2 games behind Denver. If Minnesota could get the 4th seed, I could see Minnesota beating OKC. I really can.
That's
and
tough,
if that happened and the Lakers beat San Antonio, you'd get a Western Conference final, a Minnesota versus the LA Lakers. That could happen, actually. And the Lakers are fully capable of winning that series.
I don't see the Timberwolves knocking off the Thunder. I just don't see it. I don't think they're deep enough. I don't think they get enough offense out of their big men. And Edwards has got to do too much on that team. You stop him, you really stop that team.
You'd have to get an inspired Rudy Gobert.
And Randall doesn't play well in the playoffs either. So, there's that too. Randall has historically not played well in the playoffs.
Well, that's historically, but it's a little different. And the Timberwolves, they've went to the Western Finals a couple of years in a row. So, I mean, they've been there.
We'll see. It's going to be exciting. I think both conferences are kind of wide open. I think anybody can win. I'm not saying the Thunder are going to walk away with it. It's like we thought early in the season. I think the Celtics, might have the best chance to win it all of the teams that we're talking about right now as they continue to get healthier. Baseball. We had opening day. I've already ranted about that, and I'll forget about it. I got a couple takeaways from the first weekend of the season. Not going to worry too much about records and whatnot. I mean, the Marlins are 3-0. I don't think they're going to go 162-0. But a couple things. The Met fans, 3 games in yesterday, are booing Bo Bichette because he struck out, I think, 8 times in the first 3 games. Bo Bichette's going to hit. Bo Bichette's going to play well for the Mets, I'm pretty sure. And why are Met fans booing him 3 games into the season? What are they thinking about?
And especially they're booing yesterday, and they hadn't lost the game yet.
Well, yeah. They lost.
I have a theory, Keith, that the weather was really cold and they wanted to get out of there, get home, get the big hit. If I'm the Met fans yesterday, I boo the third base coach. I boo the third base coach because of the way the Mets lost in extra innings. The Mets are down 4-2, Keith. 4-2. So you start the extra innings with a runner automatically on second base.
Yep.
Lindor gets on base. Now it's first and second, no outs. The Mets are down 4-2. Soto hits a double in the gap. Lindor sent home by the coach. Stop him at third. If you stop him at third,
Bad.
it's 4-3. You have second and third, no outs, no outs. Why are you gambling sending Lindor? If there are two outs to send them, one out, I'll consider it at least.
That's the guy who should
no
get
outs. What the heck are they doing? He gets thrown out at home. And now it's 4-3, one out, man on second, and they don't quite cash in. Polanco makes the last out. He hits the ball far on the warning track by the fence. And if they had one out instead of two, the run at third would have at the very least scored.
Right. The third base, if the Met fans want to boo somebody in that game, they should have been booing the third base coach for sure.
Exactly.
Don't play.
Yeah.
Mental mistake. You can't do that.
It felt weird watching Luke Weaver pitching, for the Mets. And Devin Williams, it did the day before him, and I'm looking at Luke Weaver saying, this guy is so familiar to me.
Yankees are going to miss Luke Weaver this year. I love that kid. He pitched a lot of last year, without his arm being fully healthy yet, and was still their best reliever for most of the year. And I think
not at the end though. Yeah.
The Yankees will miss him a lot more than they're going to miss Williams, I think, for sure, in my mind. Yeah, Donna, that's one of the stupidest things Major League Baseball's done. Jack loves that ghost runner on third, second base. I don't.
No, listen, I did have a home run derby if it was up to me.
You want games to end in 10. You just let them end in a tie after 9, probably, if it was up to you.
Keith, you're sitting watching in front of the comfort of your TV in your warm home. You don't care about these fans freezing their butts off at the game like this.
I don't.
You'd leave them out there 15, 16 innings. You don't care. I mean, come on.
Go to the game when it's cold in April. Go in frickin' June. You pick that night to go.
The schedule makers, they should schedule these early season games in the warm climate cities and the NFL as well. I could never figure out the NFL. They schedule the Miami Dolphins to come in to play the Jets in December, in New York. But early in the season, the game is in Florida, in September.
Flip-flops. Every year that flip-flops.
It doesn't make sense.
It does. Why shouldn't the Patriots and Buffalo get a home field advantage now and again in December? Why? Why not? You just want comfort. That's all you want is comfort. You don't care about, the actual advantages that teams get on the field. Come on. Comfort's overrated. Don't go out. Stay home, watch a game on TV, Jack.
That's what I do. I stay home and I watch the game on TV. I went to a game in Miami when the Packers, Aaron Rodgers last season. I went to a game in Miami. My son-in-law came in. I got the tickets way in advance. And I told him how to dress. Now you could be in your T-shirt. Keith, it was like in the low 40s, the coldest day in Miami in like 30 years for that game.
Yeah,
I remember most about that game was a Packer fan in the upper deck joking, "Welcome to the frozen tundra, Lambeau Field," he said. We're like freezing now.
I've been to one game in Miami. It was a Patriot Miami game. It was back in the 80s, and they were in the Orange Bowl. I was never so afraid in my life. That was the worst neighborhood I've ever seen an NFL stadium in, by the way. Terrible.
Yeah, it puts down about, because on the game's getting hot chocolate. I used to do that when I'm younger. Yeah, when you're younger, you can stand that more. When you're a little older, you want more comfort. Listen, the only thing worse than bad weather at a game, Donna, Danny, or whoever else is listening out there, is someone who stands up in front of you during the game. I hate when fans are standing. I don't mind they jump up when there's a great play. That's okay. That's emotion. That's okay. But I hate when everyone is standing, like pitch after pitch. I mean, sit down and lean forward on your seat. Do you stand in your own living room when it's going on? They rarely stand in their living room. Don't do it at the game. Have some consideration.
I do when I'm out at the bar watching. I get off my stool and I stand up. I'm not really standing in front of anybody, but
well, they could see over your head, Keith. That wouldn't be that bad in your case.
Here most of the game when I'm watching it out. I'm standing most of the game. Before I run out of time, I got one again. I guess I have to have a gripe with baseball at some point. This kid for the Mariners last night, in his first major league start, Emerson Hancock goes 6 innings, 9 strikeouts, no hits. And of course, we don't get a chance to pitch a no hitter because of the overall approach Major League Baseball takes to pitching today. We can't let kids overextend themselves. And don't tell me it's in April. Bob Feller pitched an opening day no hitter 150 years ago. But we've had guys pitch no-hitters in April. Stop with the 9. Let these guys go out and pitch. They take away a chance for the fans to see history, the player to have history, make history. Major League Baseball gets this so wrong. It's unbelievable to me. He's got to get
one of your biggest heroes who you made an irresponsible remark about, not about him, saying that they should retire Joe Torre's number, the Yankees, which is absurd to me, really absurd.
I'm all right.
But Joe Torre, your favorite, you're a legend to you, even though he did an outstanding job for a few years with the Yankees, but shouldn't get his number retired, no way. He pulled David Cone, an experienced David Cone, after 7 innings. Now, David Cone didn't he have a perfect game going a no-hitter? Was it a perfect game, a no-hitter?
Well, he threw a perfect game when Joe Torre.
Later on. Yeah. But he pulled David Cone after 7 innings, a no-hit ball. And Cone was begging him, Joe, I'd like to try to stay out there. And he pulled him anyway.
Wait a minute. Let me just, and I could have, my memory could be wrong here. I remember that. But in that case, I don't know that I get that upset. If I'm not mistaken, that's when Cone was first coming back because he was out for a long time with blood clots in his arm, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. And that's how I remember that one. Look at Torre let him stay in there years later when he was much older and throw a perfect game with about 110 degrees in the stadium, as I remember that game. So anyway, I'd have a problem with Joe Torre if he did that today. I'd have a problem with him. We see it every year, like once a month. No hitters taken away from guys. Ridiculous. Thank you, Danny.
No way, not even close. If you retire Joe Torre's number, I have a whole bunch of numbers to be retired sooner than Joe Torre's number.
I do too. I'd retire Roy White with Joe Torre as number 6, actually.
And then Greg Nettles, retire Greg Nettles' number while you're at it.
Nettles, I have a big problem not being retired.
What about Hank Bauer?
No, not Hank Bauer. No.
What about
not Hank Bauer? A lot of guys. And a lot of guys that are up there, I probably wouldn't. We talked about this just a few weeks ago, right? Or I think on one of the shows we did while I was on vacation that we recorded. So, in any event, we could argue about this.
I wouldn't have retired Posada's number, Bernie Williams' number, Paul O'Neill's number, CC Sabathia. I wouldn't have retired their numbers either. So I'm not picking on Joe Torre. I would induct them into the team's Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
If you have a Ring of Honor, put their names in the Ring of Honor. I'm just talking about the ultimate honor. You only retire a number for absolute legends. Ruth, Gehrig, DiMaggio, Mantle. Those about the only ones. Jeter and Rivera, I understand coming into that category as well.
And I hate Dave Roberts for doing that as well. Don't pull guys when they got a chance to make history. Anyway, great show today, Jack. Guys, we'll be back on Friday and we'll look at the Final Four. Jack's on tonight with Frank on Glove Fist, so check that out at 7 p.m. Eastern right here on the McGrath Podcast Network. And I'll be on with the college sports huddle on Wednesday. You guys have a great day. Jack, any last words before I cut you off?
No, that's basically it. I go Friday. We're going to have our NCAA men's predictions for the weekend. And are we going to have any big surprise? The big surprise would be, I think, we have to rate them in order. Michigan and Arizona 1-2. However you want to put them 1-2. UConn 3, Illinois 4th if we had to seed them right now.
I think you're right. If Illinois wins this whole thing, that'd be the biggest surprise.
Right now, yeah.
All right, guys, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on Friday morning. Bye-bye.